Welcome to tonight's lesson number 5. We will be discussing how to mind your own business. This topic comes after last week's topic, where last week we learned and discussed and meditated on the idea how every moment of the day, every breath that we take is a God-given gift, and how God recreates the world again and again and again, every single moment. And when we meditate on that, we appreciate everything that God gives us. We're able to come to today's lesson where we can actually apply this into real life. So, there we go. Tonight we're going to be making meditation very practical through changing the way that we behave. Our behavior, the acts that we do are actually going to remain exactly the same, but we're going to do the same thing with different intentions. That's the objective of tonight. Everything we see is mundane, is physical objects. This is what we see, the physical world, right? But what's the real story behind every grain, every car, every house, every building, every ocean? What's really behind it? There has to be something deeper. We spoke about them being a divine energy. Tonight, we're going to be talking how we can extract that divine energy and use that for our own development. Once we find meaning in life, purpose in life, and ways that we can elevate something that used to seem meaningless and turn it into something that is meaningful. That will be the concept that we're going to be studying today. The big question is, how do we achieve this? How through walking in the street, doing something just typical, going to the store, going to the office, working, you're doing your regular business. How do we achieve bringing out the meaningful aspects of life through these mundane acts? So we're going to start learning based on this verse. If you open up your textbooks to page 148, the text 1, the verse tells us as follows: you should know God in all your ways, and he will direct your paths. This is what the verse says, right? This is from Proverbs, know God in all your paths. So it seems like a very general statement. The Talmud discusses this in text 1b, and the Talmud says that Bakapra taught, which is a brief passage upon which all fundamental principles of the Torah are dependent. Know God in all your ways, and he will direct your paths. The word all the Talmud is bringing out is a very special word, because had it said know God in your service of God, or while you're doing mitzvah or studying Torah, would be one topic. But the verse says know God in all your ways, and the Talmud is deriving from the word all, that it's including the mundane things. It's including the regular day-to-day stuff, the things that we think are not a mitzvah, that are not obligatory, it's things that we do on our own, are still included in knowing God. Essentially, what this is telling us, that every time we do something, we take a cup of water, we go out to eat, we're on the bus, we're on the train, we're traveling, wherever you are, whatever you find yourself you're doing, you could turn that into a spiritual moment, into a meaningful moment. If we are just mindful of that moment, we can transform that from mundane to something godly. The objective tonight is to teach ourselves that not only when we're lighting Shabbat candles, or we're having a Shabbat meal, or putting on tefillin, not only when we have those moments are we doing something godly, but even when we're doing something so typical, doing something so mundane, something so regular, even then we are elevating those moments of our day and turning it into godly moments. Let's continue with text number 2. Marilyn, do you want to read for us text 2? It's on page 150.
Yeah. Let me get
Right,
there.
this is from Maimonides.
Okay. All right. We should direct our hearts and the totality of our behavior to one goal, becoming aware of God. Blessed be He. The way we rest, rise, and converse should all be directed to this end. For example, when involved in business dealings or while working for a wage, we should not think solely of amassing wealth. Rather, we should engage in such activities for the sake of being in a position to obtain that which our body needs: food, drink, shelter, and a spouse. Then, when we eat, drink, or engage in intimate relations, we should not intend to do these things solely for pleasure, to the point that we eat and drink only that which is sweet and tasty, and we engage in intimacy for pleasure. Rather, we should focus our mind while eating and drinking on the exclusive benefit of maintaining a fully healthy body. Therefore, we should not eat whatever the palate desires, which would put us on par with animals, but rather we should eat select foods that are beneficial for the body, whether they are bitter or sweet, and we should avoid substances that are harmful to the body, even if they taste delicious.
Thank you
That's
so
hard to
much.
do.
Maimonides, the combination of a doctor and a rabbi, you get it all. But clearly what the Rambam, Maimonides, is teaching us here is that even when we're just eating lunch on a regular Monday afternoon, even that moment could be turned into a godly moment when we're mindful. So tonight we're going to go through 3 areas of our life, areas that are very common for all of us. The area of eat, sleep, and work, and see how through these routines of our day, how we can be more mindful and turn it into something meaningful. If we take an average daily routine, turn it from something regular, which is shallow, to something mindful, which is now something meaningful. So let's jump into this. So on page 152, you have an exercise that asks us the following questions. Jot down your preferred food for each one of the followings: breakfast, dinner, a dinner date, snack, a comfort food, and what is your most favorite dessert? Okay, so think about those things. If you have a scrambled egg, you're enjoying a nice steak, or just a smoothie for a snack, a comforting tea, a delicious slice of chocolate cake for dessert. Now, you're stuck on a deserted island without a clue as to when you might be rescued. Identify the one food that you want to have with you. Chances are, the one food you'd want to have with you is not one of the items that you've written down on your other items. Why is that? First of all, it's harder to have an enjoyable scrambled egg when you're out on the desert, but because you're going to want just enough what it takes to survive, not what to enjoy. Today we live in a beautiful, I was going to say beautiful world. We live in it is a beautiful world, just a little chaotic, but we live in beautiful cities where we have an abundance of food, and we open up our cabinets and we don't know what food to choose. We're so confused of how much, so many options that we have. But none of these foods are necessarily chosen because it's good for us or this is my bare necessity. Rather, these are all, extras or luxuries. We can have whatever we want, right? But the concept is try to be, if we would be more mindful of what's good for us, perhaps we would be eating different foods. So without meditation, we eat because we could eat, right? We have the ability. We could buy ourselves a sandwich, we can eat it, and it's fine. Nothing happens. We continue living. If we're mindful, we start eating things for more as a survival mechanism, right? We think, what energies do I need right now? What's the best food for me to eat in the way I'm feeling? I'm anxious. I want something that will calm me down. I'm in a happy mood. I want to eat foods that will meet that. I'm feeling weak and tired. I want something that will give me the energy that I need. So this is the concept of being mindful. Taking this to the next step, if we think about every food we eat, if it's a sandwich, a salad, doesn't matter what object it is, every single food that we eat goes through a very big process from when it's grown till it's plowed, it's grinded, it's divided, it goes from one plant to the next plant. There's transportation, there's many, many workers. It's a whole operation to get you a final food. Sometimes I go to the bakery to see the kosher process of foods, and the amount of people that it takes to make one croissant in a bakery, it looks like there's an army of people, 30, 40, 50 people. Everyone has their job, what they're doing, coming and going, pots and bowls and ingredients, machines. Things have to go in the oven, things have to come out of the oven, things have to go into the refrigerator till it gets into the display case for a shopper to come and buy it and to enjoy it. There's so many hands that it has to go through. Now, how do the ingredients get to the bakery? That in itself is an entire process, right? So let's just think about today, with a click of a button, we could have a meal at our doorstep. If you want, it could be a hot meal. If there's anything that you need, within a day or two or three, Amazon will have the thing delivered to you. If we would appreciate where these things come from and the process, we're starting to appreciate every person that contributed along the entire assembly line from conception all the way until this object, this item, this food came to your door. And there's so many people here on the way that need to get appreciated, right? When we recognize their contribution that they gave for this to get to here, that's a huge deal. Now, the same is true, of course, spiritually. Spiritually, there are ingredients in every food. Every food has its soul, has its spark of God that's in the food. So when we eat any food, it gives us the nutrients that we want. We don't have to meditate that we want the nutritions. Something popped up on my screen. What's this? Sorry. We don't have to start to contemplate, do I want the sugar? Do I want the salt? Do I want the fiber, the iron? Right? It all comes naturally into our body. But the soul sparks, the godly sparks that are in these food objects, in order for us to extract it, that we need to be mindful of. Now, how do we do this? So this is what we're going to be talking about now. Very interesting. Text 3 tells us how when we make a blessing on our bread, if you've seen this or you recall seeing it by a wedding or in your house or in anyone's house, when we hold the challah bread to make the blessing, Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz, we hold the bread with all 10 fingers. And then when COVID, it's not so friendly to put your fingers on food that other people are going to eat. But let's look at text 3, what it says about the fingers on the bread. Talking about being mindful, right? So this is from the Arbiturim, the Torah. He writes, before reciting a blessing over bread, put both your hands on the bread, for your 10 fingers reflect the 10 mitzvahs associated with bread making. And this is fascinating how we're mindful of the entire process. What are the 10 stuff? They are to avoid plowing with 2 species of animals together, to avoid growing forbidden mixtures of plant species called kilayim, to leave leket, shikha, and peah, These are three distinct forms of overlooked harvests for the poor to collect. Then we have number 7, to bring the first fruit to Jerusalem. We call that Bikurim. Number 8, to donate the truma, the tithe, to a Kohen, and to observe the rites of the Meiser Rishon and Meiser Sheni tithes, and to donate the portions of dough, challah, to a Kohen. That's all 10. So now we're thinking, when we're holding this piece of bread with all 10 fingers, the 10 fingers are to remind us of this whole process of how this bread got here. There are many farmers. There are many people that got pieces of the wheat and parts of the, distributed extra flour, the tithe, the ones that fell. There's a whole system of agriculture that had to happen. This is what we call being mindful of what's going on. Now is the next step. God assisted and gave wisdom to so many to provide for you. We make a blessing and we focus on the spiritual energy. The science teaches us all the great blessings and nutritions that come from the food that's good for our bodies. Kabbalah teaches us how we can provide the energies to the soul. And this is the beauty of tonight's class. We're going to be talking about regular things that we do in a regular day. But it's accomplishing a lot more than just eating that fruit and giving you those vitamins and the sugars that you need, but really it's helping your soul as well. So let's jump into the Kabbalah. We're going to be studying from the Baal Shem Tov tonight on text 4a, page 154. Jeff, you want to read for us?
On 154?
Yeah, text 4a, why we eat.
Yeah. When God declared, let the earth give forth living souls, or let the earth produce vegetation and fruits, Genesis, those very words created everything, and those same utterances continue to function as the inner life of that which was created through them. When we take a fruit or any food or recite a blessing over it with proper intent, articulating the words, blessed are you, God, mentioning God's sacred name, the spiritual energy responsible for bringing that fruit into existence is activated. This occurs because everything was created through the divine name. And our articulation of God's name in the blessing awakens the divine energy that flows from God's name within the fruit. Then the awakened energy within the fruit provides spiritual sustenance for our own soul. This can only work with kosher food, substances that God himself directed us to sublimate from mundane to divine. This is the deeper significance of the verse. Know that a person does not live by bread alone, but rather by whatever comes forth from the mouth of God does a person live. Deuteronomy. It is not the physical bread alone that supports life. Rather, when we utter God's name in a blessing and activates the spiritual energy, that is what gives life to a person, or more precisely to the soul that animates us.
Thank you. So Baal Shem Tov is making a very simple calculation. What makes flower have sustenance of fruit and not the branches or the sand or the dirt? Why some things on the ground give us the substance we need and some don't? And the answer is because it's by the word of God that we're living in, that we live on. So when God decided certain things we eat will give us those energies. And the same is true with the spiritual sparks that lie within those foods. So let's look on the screen. God's speech creates the world. the godly sparks flow through creation. And when I say a blessing, I bring out that spiritual energy. So from when God created the world, this spark has been waiting in this food from the day the world was created. If you have a simple cup of water and you make a blessing on this cup of water, you're redeeming those sparks that were trapped in that cup of water. It was almost like this little diamond was hiding within it, and you revealed it. This is what happens when you make the blessing. The Baal Shem Tov is saying something further. He's taking this one step further, that our yearning to eat, the desire that a human being has to eat, is designed because we have a calling. Every Jew has a calling, and our calling is to reveal godliness in this world, to reveal the spirituality, to allow this spark to reveal itself. The spark is stuck in this food, in this object. So when we make a blessing over the food and we eat the food and we're mindful of this blessing, we're mindful of what we're about to do, we're redeeming this spark. And that's why we were drawn to eat this food. So that craving that you have is really the craving because the godly spark is screaming to be redeemed. And you're the one that's going to come and redeem that spark. We're going to continue the Baal Shem Tov on page 157. Carolyn, do you want to read text 4b? You got to unmute. Hold on. Carolyn, can you unmute?
I got it.
There you go. Okay. The analogy.
The analogy is clear. The entire purpose for which God created this world is to enable us to retrieve the divine sparks that are lost within materiality. For we are empowered to sublimate all kosher.
One second. Go, Carolyn, go one paragraph up where it says an analogy.
Oh, I'm sorry. An analogy. A king once lost a precious gem and wished his beloved son to have the great honor of being the one to successfully locate the gem. In truth, the gem was not lost. The king knew where it had been concealed, but engineered the ploy to give his beloved son the opportunity of earning it. The king also wanted the distinct pleasure of witnessing his son's hard-earned success. The king went so far as to drop his son a hint as to where the stone could be found. The analogy is clear. The entire purpose for which God created this world is to enable us to retrieve the divine sparks that are lost within materiality. For we are empowered to sublimate all kosher and permissible food items. On this theme, the Baal Shem Tov revealed a fascinating mystical truth embedded in the verse, hungry as well as thirsty, their soul enwraps itself in them. That's Psalm 107. These words come to answer the question, why did God create us with a craving for food and make our survival dependent on eating? The answer is that there are divine sparks trapped in material entities. These sparks long to cleave to holiness. They call out for assistance, and our souls hear their call and respond to their plight. When we eat or drink, we sublimate the divine sparks in the food or drink that have called out to us to achieve spiritual elevation through us. Thus, the mystical meaning of the verse is this: hungry as well as thirsty. Why do we experience hunger or thirst? Their soul enwraps itself in them because the soul, this divine spark, is trapped within them, the food, in a state of exile and seeks liberation. God leaves hints for the Jewish people, indicating the various ways through which we will discover the lost entities or divine sparks and return them to their rightful owner, our Father in heaven.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's the story. So we get these cravings for ice cream or chocolate, and you think it's just a sugar craving, or you really like that chocolate. But really, there are godly sparks there waiting for you to make this blessing, to be mindful of what you're about to eat. So when you eat and you're mindful of the whole process of every person that was involved in getting the food all the way to your mouth, and you make this blessing and you have in mind the right things, then you're not only elevating the dish that you're eating, but you're elevating the entire process. Every person that was part of this assembly line is going to be elevated at this moment when you are making this blessing. And the counter side is, if we eat it without being mindful, what happens? We are basically burying those sparks just a little bit deeper, which is not something we really want to do, right? But sometimes we do it.
You eat,
We get another
you
chance.
eat too
to
much.
Yeah. There's a funny story where the Rebbe Rashab, who was the fourth Chabad Rebbe. So he was eating at the Shabbos table, and he was eating like we all eat. And he kept trying to get this piece of food on his fork, and it kept falling off. Every time he got into his fork, he's bringing it to his mouth, it falls off. After a few tries, he just says, "Okay, I guess this food doesn't want to be elevated." You know? Of course, those sitting around the table enjoyed the humor about it. But when the Rebbe says this, there was some truth to it. And he was eating mindful and realized that, okay, the food is not ready to be eaten. It's not ready to be elevated just yet. The sparks are not ready to be redeemed. In text 5, we'll see how the Alter Rebbe discusses this concept of eating and takes it even further to a deeper level. Jonathan, you want to read first text 5, page 159. You got to unmute. Remember to unmute. Are you there, Jonathan? You want to read?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah,
way to
unmute.
position eating as an act
There you go.
akin to offering a sacrifice to God. For example, you can eat marbled beef and drink fragrant wine for the sake of broadening your mind to better understand God and His Torah, or to fulfill the mitzvah of enjoying Shabbat and the festivals with good foods and beverages. When eating in such a way, the meat and wine are sublimated. Conversely, if you eat meat gluttonously simply for corporal pleasure, the energy you derive from that food or beverage is temporarily dragged down into the clutches of negative energy that obstruct God.
Right. So meditating it can elevate it. It doesn't matter. In other words, we're not taking away the luxuries of life. You can be drinking really fine wines and great slices of meat. Not taking away the luxuries of life, but it's and how we eat it and how we enjoy it. Marilyn, you want to read text 6 for us?
Sure. Eat like it's Shabbat. The ideal mode of serving God is that you should be able to sense the divine within the business you conduct and within your field of mundane employment. This requires more than engaging in labor or commerce for the sake of heaven, which lends a spiritual goal to otherwise mundane activities. Rather, beyond that, you should strive to sanctify the mundane activities themselves. This is the true meaning of the verse, "In all your ways know God." Not only should your activities be um, oriented towards divine awareness, but there should be a divine awareness within the activities themselves. A paradigm for this is eating on Shabbat, whereby the physical act of eating is itself a fulfillment of divine instruction. Similarly, our weekday food consumption, and for that matter, all mundane activities should be conducted not only for the sake of subsequent sacred goals, but also as immediate methods of experiencing God, experiencing divine awareness.
Right, so it's amazing how we can take these simple things and turn it into something so godly. And the only thing we have to do is be mindful. And when we put our mind to it and we concentrate on what we're doing, all of a sudden we're elevating these sparks, redeeming these sparks that were there for a very long time, waiting to be redeemed. We're going to play now a video from Rabbi Wolf on his meditation on this idea that we just learned.
We don't dichotomize between the holy and the secular. In other words, everything has meaning. Everything is valuable. Everything is precious. Even the most mundane aspects of life contain deep spiritual meaning, and we relate to that in a very profound way. Even eating. You have been given a raisin, just hold it in your hand, and I'll tell you what to do with it. So gently close your eyes and just become aware of your 5 senses. Become aware of what your eyes see at the back of your eyelids. Become aware of what you can hear in the room, even sounds within you. Become aware of the feel of the raisin, its texture. Anticipate the taste of the raisin once you begin to eat it. And become aware of any fragrance around you. I would like you to take the raisin and adopt a particular kavanah, focused intention. And the focused intention is that you are going to borrow the soul energy of that raisin and allow it to become part of your own energy system. You'll do that by eating it. To adopt a focused kavanah, we prepare ourselves by saying a bracha. A bracha, commonly translated as blessing, means a way of drawing down a channel for the soul spark within the raisin to become elevated through. Say it with me or just respond, Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech ha'olam borei pri ha'etz. And begin chewing. And as you chew the raisin slowly, many times, become aware of the different textures that you encounter. And as the saliva mixes with the skin of the raisin, with the body of the raisin, it changes even more. Become aware of the sweetness of its taste. All these aspects that are the product of the spark soul of that raisin. Sweetness produces uplift of emotions. That is the soul spark within. Listen to your teeth chewing the raisin, thereby making it much more amenable to digestion. All the wondrous ways that Hashem created the world, all just for elevating the soul spark in the seemingly mundane and ordinary. Be prepared now to swallow the remains of the raisin. And as you do, sense how it becomes one within you. Its vitamins and goodness being extracted through the bloodstream into the needs of the body, and the soul spark within being released to a much higher spiritual state because of your bracha. Everything we do in life can be elevated and become much more meaningful if we understand the spiritual dynamics. Soul sparks exist in everything. When we do the right thing, we free the soul spark from its prison, channeling it to its higher source. And we become elevated in the process.
Wow. That was the journey of eating. Then we're going to go on to the next step, which we spoke about, which would be sleeping. And then we're going to go on to work. Sleeping is something we all do. It's a human need. God created us in a way that we can't function without sleep. God could have created us where we needed 1 hour to sleep, or that we sleep 20 hours a day. But God designed it to be in such a way that the average person needs to have 8 hours of sleep, give or take a little bit. But sleep is a very important thing. Generally, meditations on sleep are ways to calm one person down, to make their sleeping a better sleep. But today, actually, we're going to be talking about how to wake up. What's the message of sleeping is to wake up as with a new energy, So how can we do that? So without meditation, we sleep that we should be rested. But with being mindful, we sleep that we should be recharged, that our next day should be an entirely new day with new energy, a whole new idea. So let's look at page 162, exercise 5.3, where it says, imagine you are offered a magical pill that enables you to function endlessly without any sleep at all. Would you take it? Explain your position. If you didn't need to sleep at all,
I would take it.
you would take it. We could accomplish so much more. And so often, all we need to do is get a little bit of sleep, and then we could get back to work and continue fulfilling all our dreams and missions and work and responsibilities. But sleep is a real thing. There's something to it, right? Oftentimes, when someone asks us something difficult, we'll respond something along the words of, let me sleep on it. What does it mean, let me sleep on it? Because I need to relax. I need to give it thought, right? Sleep is a very integral part of our DNA. In the morning, when we wake up, we say the Moda'ani, recognizing that God has given us another day. So we see that Judaism kind of teaches us that before we go to sleep, there's the Shema prayer. And we're going to talk about that in a moment. And that has where we're sort of ending the day, taking an accounting for how our day was. And in the morning when we wake up, we're ready for a whole new day, a whole new challenge. So let's jump into this. Text 7 on page 163. This is taken from part of the morning blessings, where the Alter Rebbe, who not only wrote the Tanya, also wrote a code of Jewish law. So in the laws of the morning blessings, he says as follows. It's customary to recite the blessings of Asher Yatzar each morning, because at the start of each day, we are like freshly created beings. It is therefore appropriate to praise God daily for having created humans with his wisdom. If every time we wake up in the morning and we feel like God just gave me a fresh start, a whole new, a clean slate, all my anxieties and worries from yesterday, I don't have to carry with me today. Yesterday, I was in a bad mood. I woke up now, today I'm in a good mood, right? The day before, we could have felt stressed, we could have felt anxious, could have felt tired, whatever it is. We get a good night's sleep, we wake up in the morning, we feel like we've given a whole new life. That's how much sleep can actually do. In the evening, text 8, the Zohar tells us of what we do before we go to sleep. Before lying down to sleep each night, we should take stock of our deeds throughout that day. We should repent for whatever we did wrong and ask God for compassion and forgiveness. Now let's look here on the screen. The Moda'ani is thanking God for a fresh start. Before we go to sleep, it's a time to press our pause button. Let's stop everything we're doing, all our responsibilities. We end the day. Now we have to think, what did we accomplish? What did I not accomplish? What did I do good? What did I do that wasn't so good? Have I done exercise? Did I skip the gym? Did I call a friend? Let's go through everything. And then we start planning how we could fix it tomorrow. And this is how we kind of let go of all the things that didn't go the way we planned. Today, we let it go, we leave it behind, we hit the pillow, we go to sleep, and we wake up with a fresh start. That's the idea. This is the idea on a body level, but the same is also true on a spiritual level with our soul. Our soul, when we go to sleep, a part of our soul goes back to its spiritual highs. It goes all the way up to heaven. If we contemplate what's going on, we will understand that the soul is going back to retrieve all of its spiritual energies. And then when it comes back into our world, it starts afresh. So let's see this insight on text number 9, page 164. Jeffrey, would you like to read for us text 9 on 164? Unmute. There you go.
Hello? Can you
Yeah,
hear
you
me?
got it. We hear you now.
Okay. Our sages institute the practice of reciting the verse, I deposit my spirit into your hand. Psalms 31:6, each night before going to sleep, just after reciting the bedtime Shema. We should meditate on the idea that we are depositing our souls as if on a loan and consider to whom we are providing the deposit. Our souls then draw life from on high. That is spiritual life.
So simple to take these 8 hours of sleep that we're about to go get and turn the sleep from something simple, something mundane, to something godly and something spiritual. If we just reflect for a moment on the journey that my soul is about to take and appreciate when it comes back, that is turning this into something godly. Now let's turn again to Rabbi Wolf for a meditative on this topic.
Such a mystery, falling asleep, that absolutely beautiful transition as you move from consciousness into some state of subconsciousness. And what you're doing is allowing yourself to move upwards, wander your soul in higher realms where it is energized for the next morning. Gently close your eyes and just become aware of waves rolling in from the sea. Observe one wave as it finally lands on the shoreline, losing its form, its last gasp, with its wetness extending, and then the excess gently rolling back into the sea. The cycle of a wave, the cycle of life. Are you aware of the moment of falling asleep, when the wave loses its form and spreads on the shoreline? Do you prepare yourself for the journey of your soul at night, when the soul rises to higher realms, enjoying a tutorial to further enlighten it, give it peace and rest, to become refreshed by morning time? Do you have complete trust in your sleep state? Do you willingly allow your soul to travel on high? That state of trust, bitachon, is so necessary for a good night's sleep. Biyodoi afkid ruchi. I deposit my soul in God's hands. The soul has been given to me by the manufacturer with a warranty. And that warranty includes nightly gain, improvement, refreshment. And that's why I sleep. Prepare yourself before you go to sleep to have a state of confidence that the journey will allow you to be a better you next morning. Say the Shema before you go to sleep to create that sense of absolute confidence as you deposit your soul on high. By doing so, the depth of your sleep allows the soul's return to be one that brings you strength and confidence the next morning. Prepare for a good sleep. Be confident in elevating your soul and allow the next day to be a day of further growth and the soul's pathway through the body to reach out and make the world a much better place.
Wow, it'd be appropriate to say goodnight. Wow, really transforming our sleep and turning that into a great day, which will bring us to the next topic of work. So we spoke about how we can turn regular food into a blessing, into transforming regular mundane food that we eat and extracting the soul, extracting the divine energy that's in there. We spoke about how a good night's sleep, we could also extract the divine energy that's in the sleep. And now we're going to talk about the divine energy we can extract when we are working. So for some people, their Monday mornings can look pretty difficult, stressful. And the idea of, through being mindful, that we can transform our work and realize that the work that we're doing is actually a very meaningful and enjoyable thing. So to do that, we'll ask ourselves a simple question on 165 of why do you work? Why do you work? Most of us work because we need money. We need to support our family, right? It's a survival mechanism. We want to have a safe house. We need food to eat. We need clothes to buy. We want to go to good schools. You want to live a decent life. You need to work. And, at the end of the day, whatever work you're doing, it's because we need the money. We need that paycheck that we take home at the end of the day. If we don't get the paycheck, then why do we go work? Well, if that's the case, we'll ask you the next question on the page. If you won a lottery ticket, or if you received an inheritance, or you have everything you need and you don't need to work, would you choose to work, or would you choose to stay home and not work at all? It's a very hard question. I know it depends on what age you're at and what stage of the game. But if it's not work, it's something else that needs to keep you busy. We need to always find ourselves very busy. We have to be finding ourselves as we're accomplishing something. I have a friend that was very blessed at a very young age. He sold his company and was able to take home a couple $1 million, young boy. And for 6 months, he traveled and he slept and he woke up and he went to eat and he went to the gym and did all these fun stuff. And after 6 or 7 or 8 months, dragging himself along, he was already fetching, I need to go back to work. I can't live like this. I just feel so stupid, so silly. Also in the back of his mind, maybe I'm going to spend all my money and I'll lose all my money and I'll be able to be a 30-year-old, a 40-year-old guy talking at once upon a time I made a lot of money. And he decided one day, that's it. He's going back to work. He got himself a computer in his apartment. He set up an office, and then he hired someone, and then he slowly, got his business back going. And now, thank God, he's working with responsibilities and commitments. And I asked him, I said, I don't understand. You work, you hustle, you have responsibilities, you have stresses, anxieties from work. You don't need the money. You're not working for the money. What is it? And it's interesting. For every person, the answer is a little bit different. But I think more or less, we need to have a certain level of fulfillment. And for some of us, we love our work. Some of us, we don't necessarily love it. But there is a certain feeling of satisfaction that we get from going to work. Well, tonight we hope to be able to bring home that full good feeling of working. So why are humans wired to always be doing something? This is a very good question. The answer is because God values work. Like everything in this class, it will always bring you to a source in the Torah to why we do what we do. God values this work. I did not intend to interrupt your work. Let's take a look at this Medrash, text number 10. The Medrash tells us that work is precious. All the prophets made a point of performing labor. Jacob requested, let me go back to tending and guarding your sheep. Moses was described as a shepherd. As the verse says, Moses was a shepherd. Regarding David, it is stated, God took David from the sheep pen. The prophet Amos declared, I am a cattle herder and inspector of sycamores, but God took me from following the flock. Work is precious. God only rested his spirit upon Elisha, the son of Shaphat, while he was busy at work. As it is stated, Elijah went from there and found Elisha, the son of Shaphat, as he was plowing. What did Elijah tell him? Go back to work. What did I do to you? Meaning, I did not intend to interrupt your work. In other words, God's presence only came to him while he was working. So we just bring this medrash to show you that the greatest minds and the greatest leaders of the Jewish people, not only did they work, but they loved their work. They really enjoyed working. Not only did they enjoy working, but we'll see from the next text, in text 11, that working is actually a mitzvah. It says, love work, do not despise it. Just as God gave us the Torah along with the divine covenant regarding its observance, so did God give us the covenant regarding our mundane work. As the Torah states, 6 days you shall work and perform all your labor, and the seventh day is a Shabbos to God. So the text here is bringing out, not only is Shabbos a holy day of Shabbos, but that the 6 days that you work, the Sunday through Friday, every single moment of your work is a mitzvah itself. It's a mitzvah, it's a commandment that you have to work. So God sanctifies work just like resting on Shabbos is a mitzvah. Working for 6 days is a mitzvah as well. As we see, the Talmud tells us in text 12 that a person prefers a single measure of their own labor rather than a gift of 9 measures from someone else's labor. It is a dearer to the person because they have worked hard for it. Right? I always say, challenge me. It definitely feels good to succeed. It also feels good to get gifts and to not have to work. So there has to be a balance in this concept, right? To live with the stresses and anxieties and from paycheck to paycheck is a very difficult lifestyle. We're not saying that that's necessary, but we're trying to bring out here the work aspect of it, not the paycheck part of it. The working aspect of it. We have to see that our going to work is actually a mitzvah. When God put us in this world, part of the way this world rolls is that I have to go to work. This is my piece that I have to do. And the idea tonight is what we want to bring home is that each and every one of us not just go to work because we have to, and it's something we have to do because we need to make money so we can pay our bills, and we can pay our rent, and pay our electricity, and pay for the heat, and pay for all that stuff. But rather, we go to work because it's a mitzvah to go to work. And not only am I going to work, but even more, I'm going to bring God with me into my work. I'm going to bring this divine spirituality with me into my workforce. This is the idea that we really want to talk about today. So text number 13, Marilyn, do you want to read for us? 168?
Sure.
Thank you.
Oh.
From the Talmud.
Rava taught, when we depart this world and must face heaven's judgment, each of us is asked, did you conduct business faithfully? Did you designate times for Torah study? Did you engage in procreation? Did you long for the final redemption? Did you engage in the derelicts of Torah wisdom, or attempt to extract a fresh concept from an existing one?
So this is a little piece from a Talmud we took out just to give you this idea of what the first question the Rabbah tells us. When we depart this world, the first question that we're going to be asked, did you conduct business faithfully? First question. And I think the answer to this is, what does it mean to do work faithfully? To do work faithfully means to expose the secret powers of the world, to bring out the spirituality that's in everything that we touch. Whatever work you're doing, you have to ask yourself, what is the divine purpose of this here? How did I get here? What am I accomplishing? What's the story behind this? There was a video just last week that was going around of a businessman in Israel who's actually a second cousin of mine. His name is Meir Zeiler. So he has a company called Deutsche Plastics in Israel. And the Rebbe would encourage him to go every year to this business trip in Sweden. And he didn't do a lot of business there. And it was an expensive trade show to participate in. But the Rebbe, he always asked a blessing for the Rebbe, asking if he should go. And if he should go, he should get a blessing. The Rebbe always encouraged him to go. He never understood it. The biggest day of business at the trade show is on Saturday, on Shabbos. The show started Friday morning and ended Sunday night. It was a weekend trade show. He would come Friday at 2, 3 o'clock. He would put up a sign on his booth that were closed in the observance of Shabbos, and whoever wanted can leave a business card or come back on Sunday. And that was it. He went to his hotel room with his son that was working with him, and they spent their Shabbos in the hotel room. And this was year after year. This is what would happen. And then one year, Sunday morning, he comes to his booth and there's an old man waiting for him. And the old man tells him, this is your booth. What's all about the sign you have here that you close on Shabbos? We came here to do business. Why are you mixing in God? And he realizes that this is an old person who's a survivor from the camps. And he had a very bad experience with Judaism. And he's really giving it at him that he closes on Shabbos and that he advertises that he closes on Shabbos. Why do you have to come to the trade show at all if you're going to close your booth on the main day? And Meir is just listening to everything the person says, and he explains to him, where I come from. I come from Israel, and I'm an observant Jew, and our company is a religious Jew, ran religiously. And if you want to do any business with us, we're open for business. But if you don't want to do any business, I want to offer you to put on tefillin. He's a Chabad chassid. He had his tefillin with him. And this he couldn't refuse. And he puts on tefillin. And this was the first time he puts on tefillin in many, 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 many years. and they started to learn together, and it brought back all his memories of growing up in a religious home, an observant family, and so on and so forth. So Meir was describing that this relationship started on a business trip that he was doing, and he had no idea why he was doing it. He didn't even enjoy the trip. Leaving your family for Shabbos, it's a schlep, it's expensive, you're not making money. What's the point, right? But he was following the Rebbe's guidance, and he did it. And he merited to see something amazing coming out of this trip. That there was a divine energy, there was something that had to happen. He had to do it through his business, because if a rabbi would approach this old person, he would have never gotten to have a relationship with him like another businessman had. And that was it. It was a successful story. So when we know we're going to be asked, did you conduct business faithfully? The question is, did you find godliness in the mundane business that you do? So you go to work every day. You perform business things, right? Even if you're retired, we should mention, even if you don't work, you're still doing work. You're following your stocks, you're following your financial advisors, your this home, your second home, your kids, your grandkids, right? This is your business. You're minding your business. Did you find godliness in the mundane, in the regular day-to-day life? Did you speak to your financial advisor? Did your banker? Do they know you're Jewish? Did you share something with them about Yiddishkeit? Right? Being proud of who we are. This is the idea. The Rebbe talks about this on text 14. The Rebbe says, page 169, based on the Talmud, the way the Talmud phrases heaven's inquiry, did you conduct business faithfully, allows for the alternative understanding. Not only does it include an inquiry regarding our honesty and integrity faithfully, but also about the spiritual approach, full of faith. Was your mundane and material work saturated with faith in God? And the Rebbe uses this word saturated with the faith of God. If you're passionate about something, you see everything in life as a passionate thing. There's a friend of ours who is a very passionate football fan, and he follows football, and he knows the scores and the stats and everything, right? Usually when I talk to him, the conversations, everything's an analogy of that's a good quarterback, that was a good throw, that was a good eye, everything's within the terminology of the football game, of the rules, the strategies, etc. When you speak to a doctor, his strategies are all medically. You speak to a lawyer, it's right. They see life, everything they see is in what they're passionate about. And the Rebbe here is saying that if we're saturated with faith in God, if everything we do and see, we see God in it, we're so proud of who we are. We so live it, breathe it, and we sleep it, we eat it, and work it. Our life is so passionate about it that that's it. We're bleeding godliness. Everything we do, even a regular day of work, is going to bring out this beautiful spirituality. Let's say this in text 15. Jonathan, you want to read for us? Page 170.
The entire purpose of creation is to create a home for God within its material world, or a realm of existence that sits at the bottom of all creation, beyond which there is no lower dimension of existence. For that reason, our primary work and the overwhelming majority of our pursuits are not in sacred matters per se, but that would be similar to the spiritual service of a soul in heaven that has yet to descend to earth, or that has already departed from earth. Rather, our primary engagement is to engage with mundane and material entities. As the Torah instructs us, 6 years you shall sow your field, indicating that we should introduce holiness and divinity even to the soil of a field, the lowest dimension of existence, thereby creating a home for God in the lowest of realms.
Thank you. if we can just bring this spirituality into the lowest places, we will be blessed to see these blessings that come out through it. Now, this is radical. For many generations, Jews have mixed their religion and their work. Mixed. They've kept it separated as much as possible. And when they were at work, they dressed and looked a certain way. When they were at synagogue, they dressed and looked a different way, right? Kabbalah and Chassidic teaching comes to bring out that we actually have to bring our God with us to work, and bring godliness with us. And by doing that, we'll raise that mundane, the material world, and bring it and make it much more spiritual. We're going to play one more video from Dr. Professor Wolf on this idea.
Why do you go to work every day? Whether that work be in an office or a home office or housework. Why do you do this? Is it to save money for the vacation at the end of the year? Or is it to give yourself and your family security for survival? Or do you do it to help self-realize, fulfillment, higher purpose? Since such a significant part of your life is at work, it's important to imbue it with some sense of importance, which it is. Gently close your eyes and picture yourself walking along a gentle sloping path upwards a hillside. And as you move upwards, seeing the scenery around you, it feels so pleasant, so free, so good. Is that the feeling you have when you go to work? And if not, why not? Work seems to repeat the same mechanics. But think about it. You're an artist at work. The artist has the same mechanics, the same paintbrush, the equivalent canvas every single time, and yet each opportunity is a new work of art. Your work has to be imbued with purpose, mission, destiny. When you speak with your colleagues, you can change their lives. Speaking with confidence, speaking positively, very much affects the lives of those around you. With those words, you are an artist with a paintbrush. The more you smile at work, even without speaking, lifts the spirits of those around you. You affect them profoundly. The way you conduct yourself, personal excellence, self-mastery, gives those around you a sense of pride in the same work. The mechanics may be the same, but the mechanics are only the means of you to express your true artistry. Allow your work to be clay in the hands of a sculptor, changing your attitude, giving your work a sense of purpose, meaning, changes the world and certainly changes the lives of those around you. And this will reflect in you. You will see how your own life becomes changed, positive, uplifted, happy through your work. Work is important. It occupies so much of your day. Allow yourself to be the artist in the studio in context of your work. And that way, allow the world to be a beautiful garden that everyone can walk in with admiration. Gently focus again on your breath, breathing in through the nose and out through the nose, feeling the coolness of the air as it enters and the warmth of the air as it exits. Begin moving your fingers and your toes in the room where you are. Move your fingers, move your toes. Become aware of where you are now, and gently begin opening your eyes, coming all the way back into the here and now.
Okay, this week concludes the topic on working. Like every week, we like to make sure that we have something that we can actually apply, not just ideas, but something we can really bring into life. So let's see how we can make these meditations really practical. So number one, being conscious of the divine energy that's in our foods. So when you're drinking your coffee, or you're having a salad, or you're having a sandwich, think about the divine energy that is there. Let's see if we can free those energies, redeem them, and this way elevate the entire food chain that was involved in what you're eating. Number one. Number two, let's utilize the daily body and soul reboot. When we wake up in the morning, we're fully functional by having a good night's sleep and really being mindful of what's the purpose of sleep. And thirdly, bringing God into our workforce, bringing God with us into the mundane, into the materialistic world in a way that we can really feel everything that we do is truly godly, and this way elevate everything that we touch. With this, we're going to have the summary of tonight's class, and next week we'll conclude the final class on this topic.
Lesson 5. Mind your business. Reframing the routine. 1. Jewish meditation is action-oriented, designed to deliver practical results in both physical and spiritual well-being. 2. Know God in all you do is a major axiom of the Jewish value system. It speaks to the notion that everything we do, not only the overtly spiritual and religious, can be an expression of godliness. 3. Eating can be transformed into a mindful spiritual act. On a simple level, this can be achieved by being conscious of the complex journey from our food's origins to our tables. Making a blessing prior to eating brings that mindfulness into focus. 4. On a deeper level, all food possesses divine energy. Being conscious of that and eating only for positive purposes allows us to release that divine energy from the food and transform a mundane act into a divine experience. This too is brought into focus while reciting the blessing prior to eating. 5. Sleep is an opportunity to reboot and refresh. We can imbue it with profound significance if we take stock in the expiring day, resolve to perform better tomorrow, and use our nocturnal rejuvenation to break free of past toxicity. 6. Work is not simply a means to an end. Humans choose to work, even when they do not require the money. Rather, work satisfies a basic human need to earn our own success. With proper meditation, we can find God in the mundanity of our daily work routines.
Beautiful. What a beautiful evening. Next week, we will have the final class, which we will be discussing the most important part of Judaism is performing the mitzvah, and how performing a mitzvah with more mindfulness and meditative concepts will bring out the mitzvah into an entirely new way.